Argentina's president plans on defying Congress by vetoing a new law. And former Brazilian leader Lula da Silva criticizes the actions of the country's interim president. Those are our headlines. My name is Reagan Des Vignes, and this is From the South. Thank you so much for joining us. This evening, we begin with Argentina's President Mauricio Macri, who has announced that he will veto the bill approved on Thursday by the Congress aimed at preventing massive layoffs. The bill will likely be formally vetoed on Monday when the official gazette is published. Under Macri's government, 141,000 people have lost their jobs, both from the private sector and the public. Opposition lawmakers have warned that more than 150,000 jobs could be lost by the end of the year. In a surprising response, President Macri argued that the law would hurt job growth and would not help to reduce the unemployment rate.
En uso de esta facultad constitucional que tengo, voy a vetar.
Today, using my constitutional powers, I'm going to veto this bill, which I believe is anti-jobs. It's a law that is against Argentines, a law that shows that we don't trust in our own future. Just a short time ago, the opposition said that these kinds of laws do not create more jobs, are not good for progress. And what is going on now? Why are they backing it? Because they want to use politics to put spokes in the wheel. They don't want us to advance. They don't want us to have these new opportunities.
Meanwhile, the leader of one of Argentina's 5 labor unions has announced that a national strike is being organized against Macri's decision to veto the anti-layoff law.
Veto may have all the legality given by the national constitution to the president to do it, but it has all the illegitimacy given by the majority of the workers who are against this veto and are in favor of the law. What President Macri is doing is a barbarity. The only chance he had to do something in favor of the workers that didn't involve any cost to the state, he goes against it.
And Argentinian authorities have announced the extradition of Colombian drug lord and paramilitary Henry de Jesus Lopez Londoño. Now, Londoño is one of the leaders of the paramilitary group Los Urabenos and was captured in Buenos Aires in 2012. Argentina will extradite the Colombian man to the United States, where he will have to face charges of drug trafficking. He's also wanted by Bogotá on charges of terrorism and other criminal activities. Mexico has finally approved the extradition of drug kingpin El Chapo Guzman to the United States. The country's foreign office said they've received guarantees that the death penalty would not be sought against the drug lord, who will be facing charges in Texas and in California. Workers from Mexico's largest education workers union continue to protest over the education reform and over the layoffs of teachers who oppose it. Some 700 members from the union demonstrated in Mexico City outside the National Institute for Education to demand the derogation of the reform. Teachers have been fired across the country for refusing to take a new examination made mandatory with the new reforms. Teachers claim they did not get the training or preparation required for the examination, and that it's just a mechanism to remove the oldest teachers without paying them bonuses and giving them other labor rights. Brazil's Senate-imposed interim President Michel Temer has removed the head of the public media company, Ricardo Melo. Temer issued a decree ordering Melo to step down, replacing him with Laerte Rimoli, a lawmaker close to former House Speaker Eduardo Cunha, who is currently under investigation for corruption. The issue sparked a heated debate in Parliament as the Communist Party and the Workers' Party argue that an interim president does not have the same powers as an elected one. And last night, teleSur's held an exclusive interview with former President and the Chief Minister Lula da Silva, who also criticized Temer's rule going far beyond his constitutional powers.
President Temer is only an interim president, and Dilma is suspended for 180 days, or 100 days, or 80 days. She's suspended, but he has to govern as an interim president. But he has already become like the final president. And the message sent to the people is that the impeachment has already been decided and that Dilma cannot come back.
Da Silva also explained why the Senate's decision to impeach President Dilma Rousseff constitutes a breach in democratic rule.
It's been an attack against democracy. Basic rights of democracy have been violated because the minority conservative group decided to suspend a president out of sheer dislike. Since there's been no proven crime, no legal charges against President Dilma.
Moving on, just days after teleSur's released a shocking video showing opposition demonstrators lynching a policewoman in Caracas, authorities there have made an arrest. Police have arrested the security chief of the Speaker of the Congress, Henry Ramos-Alup. The chief security officer, Caromoto Rodriguez, has been accused of being the mastermind behind attacks on police officers during Wednesday's demonstrations. 5 police officers were gravely injured during the protests. In Colombia, the House has vetoed in favor of an agreement to judicially protect the final peace deal, which is expected to be reached soon after the FARC rebels and the government as mediated in Havana, Cuba. Our correspondent Natalia Margarita has more on this story from Bogotá.
The House representatives have approved a mechanism recently agreed to by the FARC and the government to protect the eventual peace deal from being undone or modified in the future. Under the measure, the peace agreement will be included in the country's constitution and will be given a special humanitarian accord status under international humanitarian law.
If to the disgrace of this country, the next president turns out to be from the extreme right opposition, the peace deal might not even be accepted. Therefore, what we want is for the deal to receive the status of constitutional amendment, for it to become legally binding so that future governments can't destroy what has been built by both the left wing and the sector of the right that also wants peace for Colombia.
Allies of former President Álvaro Uribe have condemned the agreement as a coup d'etat, but several other lawmakers say the procedure to protect the peace deal complies with Colombia's democracy and institutions. Once the final peace deal is reached, it will need to pass through Congress and the Constitutional Court before being effectively incorporated into the Constitution.
Judicial protection is just one phrase that is also a very legitimate argument of the FARC guerrillas. During 52 years, their security has been defended by the rifle. Now they're going to lay down that rifle in exchange for a piece of paper. That paper, which is called the peace agreement, has constitutional status and must be secure enough to guarantee a stable and long-standing peace.
Beyond the legal protection, the citizens' approval of the agreements remains a concerning issue among lawmakers. Both parties negotiating in Havana have said that it will be the Colombian people who will ultimately approve the peace deal, but the specific mechanism for this has yet to be agreed upon.
Most of the political parties in Congress agree that there must be a public vote. It is in the polls where the legitimacy and the citizens' and social strength lies. What will ultimately ensure that this peace process becomes binding is that the people endorse it within their hearts and minds.
With the favorable vote that the majority of the House representatives gave, the proposal to legally protect the peace deal now only needs one last congressional debate in order to be finally approved. Natalia Margarita, teleSur, Bogotá.
Every year, relatives of people disappeared or detained during Uruguay's last military dictatorship. They march in silence to demand justice. Tonight, the traditional event will take place with Uruguayans abroad also staging demonstrations. So far, only 138 cases against dictatorship-related human rights abuses have been opened, but most of them are stalled. Human rights organizations and victims' organizations are demanding that the government take action to reactivate the processes. 6 people were arrested by Peruvian authorities while trying to smuggle Dominican citizens into Chile. The smugglers charged $300 per person. The migrants were trying to cross through Tacna's southern border into Chile's northern city of Arica, in a high-risk area which is dotted with landmines. Prosecutors are still investigating. Debris and body parts have been found in the Mediterranean Sea as the search continues for the Egypt Air commercial jet that crashed on Thursday. Plane seats and luggage were among the debris retrieved by Egyptian search crews some 290 kilometers north of the coastal city of Alexandria. The search is also focused on finding the plane's flight recorders, which experts say is the best way to determine why the crash occurred. Israeli Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon has resigned, citing extremist elements in the government. Ya'alon was referring to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has approved Israeli right-wing politician Avigdor Lieberman as his replacement. Lieberman has previously called for the beheading of disloyal Arab citizens of Israel. The Iraqi army has declared a curfew in Baghdad after security officers opened fire to stop protesters from storming the Green Zone. Dozens of people have reportedly been injured in the chaos. Shia Muslims were protesting against corruption and security failures, and police fired tear gas and live bullets to drive them back. Shia Muslim cleric Muqtada Sadir has condemned the use of The Turkish parliament has approved a controversial bill that will strip ministers of parliament of their immunity from prosecution. Pro-Kurdish lawmakers say this is essentially a move to dispel opposition members from parliament. The measure is seen as targeting the pro-Kurdish People's Democratic Party that President Recep Tayyip Erdogan accuses of being the political arm of the PKK. NATO foreign ministers have ended a two-day meeting in Brussels which focused on Russia, Libya, Afghanistan, and the Mediterranean refugees mission. Foreign ministers announced that they are willing to try a second meeting with Russia before the next summit in July. The spokesperson for Russian President Vladimir Putin welcomed the announcement, but said Russian interests should be taken into account during the meeting. Taiwan's first female president, Tsai Ing-wen, was sworn in during a ceremony in Taipei earlier today. In her inaugural speech, she spoke of the need for Taiwan to move away from their reliance on China, adding that the baggage of history needed to be dropped. China still views Taiwan as its own. Paris attack suspect Salah Abdeslam exercised his right to silence as he appeared in a French court for his first questioning by the judges investigating the case. The court hearing was not open to the public. According to Abdeslam's lawyer, he felt watched, and as a result, this led him to not cooperate in the proceedings. Nigeria's army says it has freed 97 women and girls from Boko Haram. Among the women is one of the more than 200 girls abducted from the Chibok school. However, Chibok campaigners say that while the girl in question was a pupil at the school, she was actually kidnapped from her home elsewhere. FIFA's Ethics Committee Adjudicatory Chamber has recommended a 2-year ban from all football activities for Wolfgang Niersbach, the former president of the German Football Association. Niersbach has been accused of being involved in the corruption scandal around the right for Germany to host the 2006 World Cup. The committee has also recommended that he pay a fine of $30,000. And finally this evening, Silvia Vasquez Lavado became Peru's first female to reach the summit of Mount Everest. Lavado, who is 41 years of age, achieved the monumental feat on Thursday. She reached the peak of one of the world's tallest mountains alongside 150 other climbers. They were united by the NGO Courageous Girls, which is founded by Vasquez. The foundation works with female survivors of abuse. And that's how we wrap our news this Friday evening. For more on these and other stories, you can visit our website, telesurtv.net/English. And of course, you can join us on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. From all of us here at TeleSur, have a great night and an awesome weekend. Bye.